Let's talk about this original art right here. Todd McFarlane, Batman 423, $781,250. This was from the Keith Fromm collection that actually just went up on Heritage just yesterday, was actually when this cover sold. And a lot of conversation around it. You know, on the one hand, this is the most expensive Todd McFarlane piece that has ever sold. It is in the top 10 original comic art sales of all time. And yet there was still a lot of conversation, maybe even disappointment, that this didn't hit $1 million. Ryan, let me start with you here because you had that social media post and you're a SpongeBob / original art influencer. So what did you think about this particular sale? And do you think it overperformed, underperformed, or did exactly like it should have?
So I actually had a video I put out earlier today there I talked about some of these sales, and this was one of them. And so I had said I thought it would absolutely break 500,000, and that was before it had started bidding, because it broke 500,000 in the first day. And then I thought it would have a potential of breaking 1 million, but I thought it would struggle to get there. I didn't think it was guaranteed it was going to go that high. So to me, this price is more or less what I would expect. I think what really gave people these like crazy expectations on it was once they all started looking at it after that first day, because it jumped to 600 and whatever thousand on the first day. And then you're just like, man, what is this thing going to do? But it's just that I think most of the bidding got taken care of in that first day, which sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, a lot of the items that sold in that auction had big jumps in the live. Like there was one that went up. It was one of the, I think the Mac Raboy covers. It was at like 23,000 before the live bidding started, and it closed at 275,000. You know, whereas like this one was at like 620,000 and closed at 780. And so I think to me, it sold about what I would expect. I think that the early bidding threw off expectations. Now, one of the things I mentioned in my video, and the reason why I think that the McFarlane stuff does have kind of a ceiling potentially to it in the near term, is that you don't, well, I'm not going to even say we don't know. I think it's fairly well known that most of the McFarlane art exists. He may own most of it, you know, but I think he actually owns a lot of that art that's out there. And eventually he may decide to sell it. And so if you've got this, you know, somebody who has been creating comics for almost 40 years and has who knows how many pages, who knows how many covers. And so like, even though there's a huge demand for this artist, like there's got to be like a cap on the money that's out there to buy it. And so an individual piece of his going for 780,000 to me is significant regardless, because if every other cover he's ever done is also a potential item that comes up for sale, and he's had a lot of iconic covers, then, you know, like it's going to be competing at some point down the line. And especially too with pages, like how many Spider-Man issues did he do? And you have one Spider-Man page that sells for 200 grand. You know, it's like at some point, like when all those start trickling out, you start having what happened with, or what's happening right now with Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird work with TMNT. They kept everything. And we are seeing that stuff trickle out on places like Heritage. And so like, you have to look at like how much volume is really out there compared to other stuff where it's like, you don't even know if half the stuff even exists that was from the 70s or the 60s, you know, from other titles. But we know, or have a pretty good idea, that a lot of the McFarlane stuff does exist. It just hasn't hit the market before.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Manu, as the resident McFarlane fanboy here?
I mean, I think just immediately, I just want to say it sold for a lot. Like that's really cool. But early on, when it was first discovered that this was coming to market, my original estimation was 750,000. But I'll add to that. But it was like a minimum of 750,000, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it did 1 million. And then, of course, as the excitement grew and the auction actually went live and all the excitement the first day, well, then I really bought into the idea of 1 million plus, and I was rooting for it. Like myself, as well as like the larger community, we all wanted it to, from, you know, at least the people that I communicate with, we all wanted it to see it do well over 1 million because it was exciting to us. But the reason that I thought 750 was my first guess is because 500,000 to me was the foundation. I arrived at that idea possibly a little differently than Ryan did, but the same idea, because the ASM 311 page in the previous big heritage sale, which is the McFarlane cover with Mysterio, that sold for like 450 or 480,000, right? So in my mind, I just call that 500K. That's the floor. This is way more popular, way more desirable than that. So there's no way this underperforms 500. So 500 is essentially a starting bid. And I thought, well, it's really, and it could go anywhere, but I couldn't imagine it being less than 750,000. So that was my initial guess. But as the excitement built up, I thought, wow, this thing can really do 1.5, and I'm here for it. I want to see it happen. But ultimately, it sold for a lot. It is a record. And I think it's still impressive, and it is something to celebrate. We just had sort of high hopes as the excitement grew. But I also spoke to some of the people that bid on day one, and they were like, it's going to slow down a bit. We were having a good time. Yeah, we're into it. We want the piece. But I knew a couple of people that were throwing hefty bids in, and they did tell me, they said, it's not going to be like this every single day. But I did think on the last day that we were going to see some heavy action. But apparently there weren't two people willing to fight that hard for it. But this still is a very impressive number, of course.
And there's a comment in the chat too. Like, that's one of the other things, like when you think of what certain artists are known for, when you've got books that sell anything, like he's known for Spider-Man and Spawn. He's not really known for Batman. And so like, that's what, like the Spider-Man stuff, like that is always going to, and Spider-Man's just bigger, you know, the Spider-Man stuff is always going to be the most in demand, probably, until the Spawn work starts coming out. Like, I don't know, Spawn may I know there's some very big Spawn collectors out there, so that may, you know, have some big numbers in it too. But I think Spider-Man is just going to be tough to beat. It's hard to use that. It's like you try to use comparables, but it is difficult to compare to something like Spider-Man.
Yeah, I do think that, you know, even in my video, I made mention of like, there was a lot of conversation of this hitting 1 million. But at the same time, like Manu, you already said, there's precedent that, you know, his floor was more around 500. And like you guys have been already kind of mentioning, and I've heard from a lot of like original art collectors and other, you know, offline chat groups that I've been in, people saying it's like, yeah, you know, like the McFarlane fans they like this page, this work is iconic, but if you're gonna drop this type of money, like you would much rather have an ASM, you know, cover, or you would maybe want to have, you know, one of the iconic Spawn covers, because like you guys said, that's definitely more of his, you know, what he's known for. So on the one hand,
one of the comments in
maybe
the chat there, they said, imagine the Spider-Man 1 cover. The Spider-Man 1 cover has sold. It sold like 12 years ago, and I think it was
years ago.
350,000 or 400,000 or something.
Yeah, so actually, in my New York original art panel, shout out to you know, Zatari and Snicket, who were a part of that panel. We actually had one of the Seamus brothers on that panel, and actually, it was the Seamus brothers' father that owned a lot of the Todd McFarlane pieces. And those are the ones that sold in 2012. So
Okay.
that was like his particular auction. So a lot of the McFarlane pieces are out there, like, you know, going back to what you were saying, Ryan, where there's a lot of them. Like, the one thing that is interesting about, you know, them coming to market is that he did end up selling a lot of his ASM work. So they do kind of belong to like various collectors that are out there. And it's not like Todd McFarlane, if he wakes up one day and is like kind of bored, he's just gonna like have like a shotgun, like, oh, here's my Todd McFarlane sale on Heritage, and there'll be like 50 covers that come out. So like it won't be quite like that, although that could happen with Spawn, because like some people have been saying in the chat, he owns the majority of his Spawn stuff. So that might be something that we see. But, you know, back to the Spider-Man thing, a lot of collectors have gobbled it. It's in various corners of the art collecting world. So I still think that there will be a big premium on that. And not to mention, I think Todd's got another like 30 years of being an icon. Like,
Yeah.
I really feel like every year he is the biggest celebrity at New York and San Diego. Like, even this year at New York, like the excitement that goes around Todd McFarlane is even bigger than Marvel and DC, like themselves. And so I really do think that you know, he's that guy. He's that artist that's, you know, put him alongside the Bernie Wrightsons and the Barry Windsor Smiths and the not quite Frank Frazetta, but let's just kind of say that those are the top original artists that people like to collect. And I think he's definitely in there. So, it'll be cool to see. I mean, still a ridiculously big number. But dare I say, I think that it was maybe like a good buy, like it's kind of like a good buy,
I think it is a reasonable buy. Like, I mean, I wouldn't expect it to, if it was sold again tomorrow, to sell for less. I mean, I don't think that. And now, granted, you've got your premium and stuff that goes with that, so you're not going to, unless you sell it privately, you're going to take a hit. But yeah, no, I do think it was reasonable.
What do we think the ASM 1 would go for if it came to market?
The ASM 1 or Spider-Man 1?
I'm sorry, Spider-Man 1.
I saw a comment that said it has to go
more than this.
Now. Yeah, more than
like that easily clears $1 million, right?
Easily, in my opinion, easily.
Yeah, I would think something like 1.5 to 2, maybe more. Like I think if the ASM 300, there was somebody in one of my comments that said they thought the ASM 300 would sell for 5. I think that's bananas. I think the ASM 300 would probably do 1.5 to 2. The Spider-Man 1 might do more. The problem with the ASM 300 is it's almost no art. It has an even worse problem than what the people were complaining about with the 423, because it's like mostly paste ups. It's like you have Spider-Man in the middle, and then it's almost all paste ups on the rest of the cover. And so I think that's one of the things that hurts it. But I think Spider-Man 1 might put ASM 300, to the test. Like, it may sell for more.
Hulk 340 would be another good one. Someone comments that.
Nick Barucci, what's going on, my man?
Shout out to Nick and Dynamite. The Hulk 340 page, it definitely is. There is a collector that does own it, on his Comic Art Fans. It's out there. It does have a little bit of that problem where it doesn't have the trade dress on it. It's just the Wolverine with the claws. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's only kind of like half of a page of art. You know what I mean? And I don't know at the end of the day if that aesthetic matters that much. I mean, I would imagine it probably does to a degree, but
well, for the 340,
it's something to consider.
The 340 though, they would just make those. I mean, that's where most of them are. Most of them are made after the fact. They aren't from production.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
A lot of the paste ups are like somebody had made for it that you see out there. Like they have them like I think like that Hit 5.
The trade dress.
Like the trade dress and stuff. Like somebody has that made afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have an original cover over here, and the trade dress and everything else is an acetate sheet on the front. It lays on top of the actual inks and pencils.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Zatari says here, under his handle Snikt, which is their new art website, SNIKT, the Wolverine sound. It's just a comment that says ASM 300 has been offered over 3 million privately. I mean, for what it's worth, there's that comment, and I might be aware of that as well. So, like,
yeah, the private sales though, I've seen a lot of numbers where people throw out private number sales, and then the book goes public, and it does not hit those numbers. It's like, so I tend to trust public sale numbers a little more.
Comic Investments.
I mean, yeah, that's a perfect example. Multiple times.
Yeah.
And so, but I would, I don't know. I take private sale offer numbers with a grain of salt personally.
ASM 316 would be another monster one.
Oh my gosh, would it? That
one would definitely be monster. Oh. Somebody definitely owns that one as well. I believe that one sold in 2012 from that same grouping. Yeah, I think so.
You know what else? Again, family sold the Wizard 1 cover for like $32,000. The Todd McFarlane.
That would be huge as well. Actually, it's important to point that out, and I feel like that wasn't emphasized enough with a lot of the conversation with this. But this particular piece was bought on Heritage, 10 years ago or 13 years ago in 2012 for $71K. So I mean, he did have a 10x. If you crunch the numbers and you do the math, that's 20% return on your money. So there you go. Original art, Batman 423 beating the S&P 500. Shout out to original art. Thanks for watching this clip from the Ungraded Truth podcast. To be able to watch the full show, click the link down below. Yep, that one right there.